Welcome everyone. Welcome to the introduction to SOLVA session. I'll be sharing my screen right now and take you through the presentation that we have prepared. And at the end of this presentation, we will also take you through the tool and do a simulation, share results, and have a discussion of the results at the end. To begin, the agenda includes a brief background on why we need the tool, and the further going into we introduce the SOLVA tool, which has two major aspects: the power flow analysis and the odor analysis. So we'll be briefly going through each of these analysis and seeing what results we get and what components are included in odor analysis. And here odor analysis stands for the value of distributed energy resource. So moving further to establish the background, we will be looking at the current status and the policies and targets with respect to renewable energy in India. So in this slide, you can see a pie chart which shows us the electricity generation by source, and we can see clearly that coal contributes to 73% of this electricity generation, while we are progressing by establishing targets towards adoption of renewable energy, such as reducing emission intensities of India's GDP by 45% in 2030. Also, increasing our installed capacity of non-fossil fuel energy by 500 gigawatts in 2030. And Ministry of Power has recently released the new RPO targets, which aim at 43% of RPO to be covered by renewable energy in 2030. Additionally to this, Tamil Nadu also has announced a 20 gigawatt of addition of solar energy by 2030, which is primarily expected to be done through distributed systems. So, moving further to see why to introduce the tool, we will also we know that the policies provide us the way forward. However, the challenge is to see what impact the DER has on the networks and how to estimate them. Well, with the SOLVA tool, we can simulate the economic and social benefits of integrating distributed renewable energy resources into the distribution network, while the tool allows the users and facilitates to undertake a distribution transformer, a feeder, and substation level power analysis. Also, it helps to evaluate the network benefits, the social benefits for integrating the distributed energy into this power system. This tool also helps us identify system sizes and dispatch strategies that could optimize the value of distributed solar or distributed energy systems in our network. Well, we have briefly seen what the SOLVA tool can do, and further how or who can make use of this tool. Well, we think that the grid operators could use this tool to assess the network value of integrating DER at the distribution network, while regulators could use it to inform the feed-in tariff setting process. We also think that the policymakers could use this tool to assess the health and environment benefits from installing DER in the power system, while researchers could definitely make use of the tool to analyze the impact of integrating DER in the distribution network. In SOLVA tool, how do we do the evaluation? How do we go ahead on building up this simulation or this analysis? Is we have, as mentioned earlier, we have two major aspects of the SOLVA tool. One is we have the power flow analysis and the value of distributed energy resource. In the power flow analysis, we analyze the analysis offers insights about the active power and the voltage, while establishing the value of distributed energy resource depends upon the network benefits gained and the societal benefits gained by integrating the DER. Moving further to explain a bit about the power flow analysis. Here we will be looking at different configurations that have been established in SOLVA tool, and here in this slide you can see the various analysis levels and interconnection points. To briefly explain, in the SOLVA tool we can carry out an analysis of a distribution transformer level, a HT feeder level, and a substation level to determine the impacts of DER, while giving the user also the option to place the DER either at the sending end, the middle end, or the tail end of the network. We will go through a little bit of more detail with the power flow analysis when we do the simulation at the end of the session. And to move forward, we will then further proceed to check the second aspect of the analysis, that is the model analysis, that is value of DER analysis. In here we explain the consideration and the components that we have considered while establishing the network benefits and the societal benefits to provide us the value of DER at the end of the simulation. To develop our methodology, we have taken references from existing study conducted by the CEW, who have conducted this study to find out the value of grid connected rooftop solar for a distribution company in Delhi, and the NREL conducted a similar analysis to quantify the value of rooftop solar for the states of Gujarat and Jharkhand. We have also placed the links for this publication for whoever is interested to access them. Similarly, there are other examples that have been adopted across the globe, and we have placed some examples here. For example, in respect with the US and the Australia, who had adopted the value of DER methodology in their distribution network. To briefly explain how SOLVA handles the network benefit and societal benefits, we now see the components that have been considered to build the network benefit and the societal benefits in the SOLVA tool. As you can see from the network benefits, we are considering the avoided cost of energy, the distribution capacity avoided, and the transmission capacity avoided, including our generation capacity that could be avoided with the integration of DER in the system. Under the societal benefits, we take into consideration the pollutants such as carbon dioxide, NOx, SOx, and particulate matter 2.5. The total water benefit would be the sum of our network benefit plus the societal benefit. To further explain briefly each component, we start with the network benefits. In the network benefits, we see the avoided cost of energy. When we install the DER and DER generates the energy locally, which contributes in replacing the marginal generator with energy from the marginal generator, and hence the highest cost of energy in the dispatch stack. We are assuming that we are replacing the highest cost when we are integrating DER locally, and this marginal cost can be defined in SOLVA using multiple methods, which will be shown during the simulation how we could enter the marginal cost. Further, going into the avoided distribution capacity cost, we have taken a situation where we think that DER, when applied locally into the network, will eventually allow to defer the upgradation of the systems in the network and result in an avoided cost when integrated into the distribution system. Here you can see the avoided cost is being calculated with the year of upgradation with respect to DER and the year of upgradation without DER. So there is a comparison of scenario as BAU and the scenario with DER. Further, to explain the avoided transmission capacity cost, we say that with the installation of DER, and because DER is able to produce locally, we are reducing our need to contract a transmission capacity during peak hours, which is supported by the term that we have used as in our calculation, that is the capacity credit, which takes into consideration the coincidence factor of the solar generation and our total peak load hours during the transmission load hours time. And we see that the high capacity credit means that high coincidence, while low capacity credit means low coincidence. This provides us with the avoided transmission cost for contracting less or avoided contraction of the capacity with integration of DER. Moving further to the avoided generation capacity cost, the concept is similar, but we also think that with the integration of DER, we are reducing our net demand and eventually reducing the total contracted capacity for that network, hence avoiding the generation capacity cost by integrating the DER into our network. We make use of the capacity credit to calculate our generation capacity cost as well here. Briefly, now that we have briefly explained the network benefits, we move to define our societal benefits. In the societal benefits, we are trying to estimate the environment and health value that could be avoided with respect to using DER in the system as compared to the BAU case. And here you could see that we have given these four pollutants, or we use an environmental health value for the four pollutants mentioned, and the values for the four pollutants have been mentioned in the slide. As you can see, we have taken various values from literature for CO2, for the NOx and SOx, as well as particulate matter 2.5. However, I would like to point out that the CO2 value here that we have taken is the social cost of carbon, which also includes the health aspect of the impact of CO2 emissions. And in the SOLVA tool, we could also change these values as the values that are represented here and fed in SOLVA are for replacing a coal fuel source as compared to any other source, and this values could be changed as required for your simulation or your particular scenario. Here I would like to switch screens and take you through the SOLVA tool to show you a simulation of a feeder analysis with solar and storage. I am at the SOLVA homepage site. I hope the screen is visible to everyone.
No, it's not visible to me. Radhika, can you see the screen?
Maybe I'll share it again. Give me a moment. Is it visible now?
Yeah, now it's loading and it's visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is the login site for the SOLVA tool. Here, initially we would have to register and create an account, which takes 1 day to register, and then you could use your login and password to run simulations on the website. As I've already done the registration, I log in with my credentials, and it takes me into the simulation, into the tool. I land on my projects where I have worked on some projects but I will show you some features of this website as well, where we could see that on the homepage we have some details of how to the analysis. Also, we have some information with regard to the methodology and the methodology document which can be downloaded by the user. We also do have a settings for your profile, and if we click this button where we permit to project the data and share publicly, we will be able to use the projects and the data that you have used to do the simulations, such that it can provide us a database among peers to share the data that we have on different technologies or different equipments. Here we can publish some projects, and these projects are publicly visible to all the users who have subscribed to SOLVA tool, and we can view the results of these projects. However, I will take you through the project report at later time after finishing the simulation. To continue with the simulation or to do a simulation, we could start a new project. In this project analysis, we have 4 steps. On the first step, we define our project, and as mentioned earlier, we'll be carrying out a feeder analysis. Hence, we select the HT feeder for a solar plus storage system, and we could provide a unique name which could helps us identify our file. You click next to proceed to the next page, and as we have landed on a feeder profile page, we will define a feeder profile. To help us understand what we require, we have placed I buttons at certain places which would better inform the user of what to do in that area, such as we need to upload a CSV file with an annual load profile in megawatt at 1 hour time intervals, that is having 8760 values. Currently, to input your feeder load profile, we have 2 options. Either we can select an existing profile from the drop down menu which has been uploaded by the admin, or we could create a new profile by giving a name and uploading of our 8760 points in this location. If in your settings, if you have made the project public, then the admin can make use of your information and share this information with other subscribers, so we could have a more extensive database. However, for this scenario, we select the existing profile of Karungal, which is a feeder in load substation. It has an overhead feeder having a feeder voltage of 22 kilowatt and feeder length of 18.9 kilometer. We have I buttons placed to further give more clarity to the user on what each of the parameters signify. We have also the same options of uploading a new profile under the state level load profile. Here we could input either an 8760 point or provide the peak load demand and peak load event time, which will then calculate the 8760 points for that particular simulation. Or we could use an existing profile which has already been preloaded by the admin. We do have an additional optional options to be inputted, such as analysis period or upper limit of capacity upgradation, which here is 90%. Hence, for example, if we are reaching the 90% limit of the capacity, it would then suggest an upgrade, and with the upgradation, it would then shift 50% of your load to the new upgraded feeder. And values could be changed as per your convenience, including the type of conductor, with multiple options and also the option to define your own values. For this simulation, I will stick with the pre-selected conductor and click the next button to proceed further. Here we have a window which says that the BAU analysis begins and we would like to proceed with this. Hence, we press yes to proceed further, and we could either save the simulation at this point and continue the simulation at a later point in the later point whenever we require. So I press select yes and proceed in entering the data. Now we have to define our technology, and we have to while defining the technology, we give the solar capacities as 5 megawatt in this scenario, with the interconnection of solar at the sending end, inverter capacity having the same as the solar capacity, while selecting a battery of the same capacity as the solar panel, and selecting the interconnection point for battery at also the sending end. We have two preloaded options for a dispatch strategy, either to dispatch during lowest or highest marginal cost, that is, as you have defined your cost, we look for the lowest and the highest marginal cost, charging at the lowest and discharging at the highest cost. While the second option allows us to charge during low load hours and discharge during high load hours to cover the peak. Here we would select the option of charge during lowest or highest marginal cost. To proceed further, we save and proceed next to the to define our marginal cost. That in the drop-down menu, you will have multiple options of how to define your marginal cost. The first two options are to apply to upload an 8760 data points, which represents the cost in each hour of that year. It could be your it could be a cost which you have collected from research, or it could be an IEX data. While the third option allows you to enter a single value that will then become the cost for all 8760 points, and then proceed further for the analysis. For this analysis, you select a preloaded from the fourth option, that is choose from the database, a preloaded cost taken for the IEX to 2021. We define our transmission losses to be 4% in this scenario, and further, if needed, we could define the additional inputs, which include your transmission capacity cost, your generation cost, cost of upgradation in case of DT, and the emission values for the 4 pollutants in the Woden analysis. Finally, we run the analysis by clicking the save and run button, which then pops up as a pop-up window where we press yes to further proceed. And the final window tells us that our analysis is in progress and it will take us a few minutes while we receive an email once the analysis is completed. Once you click this, you are redirected to your project page where you can check the status of your analysis, that is in progress or completed, and I will share the screen in a moment. I'm just waiting for the screen to get loaded. I have got the screen again, so I'm sharing it again with you. I hope the screen is visible now. Radhika, can you please confirm if the screen is visible?
Yes, Rano, your screen is visible.
Yeah, so as I was mentioning, we can see the status of each report, and if we publish them, we would see them under projects here, as these are the projects that are published by users. To show you a sample report, I select a solar and storage feeder analysis that was published earlier by the admin and show you some the report that generates through SOLVA. As you can see, we have the project name, we have the analysis level, the feeder, and a technology solar plus storage. We are able to use the download button to download this report in form of PDF. Under key findings, you would see that we have the system that has been inputted, the contributions from solar, storage, and grid to satisfy the demand, the power flow results in voltage violations, distribution loss, and transmission losses, which we have defined within the analysis, and finally the societal benefits from installing the DER or integrating the DER into the network. We could use the social media icons as well to share them on social media. Then further we come into the system profile, where these are the inputs that have been already provided by the user as the feeder name, the feeder type, as well as the voltages that have been mentioned. Coming to the power flow analysis, as we can see, the first graph shows us the voltage violation, which says that there are 0 voltage violation in this feeder that has been selected, either in the BAU case as well as the DER case. While the average distribution loss percentage in this scenario remains fairly same or remains the same in the BAU and the DER case. The I button gives us a little bit more information on how the graphs or what they represent. Finally, we also have a peak as percentage of feeder capacity for year 1. If you notice here in the BAU case, we have a peak as 110% of feeder capacity. What this could indicate is that our feeder would have to be replaced soon, and as it can be seen in the capacity upgradation, where the feeder is suggested to be replaced in the coming 3 years. With the capacity upgradation is suggested if there are more than 5 instances in which the thermal capacity of the feeder is exceeded. As you could see, this could be a single highest peak in 1 year. So if we have seen the BAU case and the DER case to have exceeded the limit, however, the capacity upgradation is suggested only if there are more than 5 instances of this exceeding the capacity of the feeder or the substation or the loop, according to your simulation. Proceeding further to show you the graphs that are generated in this analysis. Right now we are looking at the load profile and grid power graph, which shows us the 24 hours analysis for how we have the demand, which is represented in the dark green line, the grid BAU case, which is represented in the blue line, and the grid DER case, which is represented in the light green line. The grid BAU is displayed as metered at the substation level, while the load profile is displayed as metered at the point of consumption. So if you could see the small gap between the grid BAU and the demand or the load, this could represent the distribution losses that are being occurred between the substation and the point of consumption. In this graph, we could also select a range of date. For example, let us select from 3rd to 4th to see how the load profile and grid power are behaving for these 2 days, and we could see how they are behaving in the graph. So we can give a range of values and see how it is represented in the analysis. Further, we move to the next graph that is generated from the power flow analysis, that is the voltage profile, and this is represented for the 24 hours, and as you can see represented by the line in the middle, the voltage does not violate the high voltage max and the voltage minimum at any point in this 24 hours, while it also maintains the same profile as it does in the BAU. So if we could deselect the DER by clicking on it, then we would be able to view the BAU only case in the graph and see how it behaves with respect to DER. We could also check the range of and see how it behaves over a period of time. And we have the information stored for 8760 points in this graph, which can be visualized using this graph or can be downloaded using the download button next to the calendar. Going further to see the distribution losses, as we have seen that the distribution losses have not changed from the summary results above. We can see the same here in the profile that has been generated for 24 hours. If we are to remove the BAU profile, we would be able to see only the DER profile, which is overlapped. And if we deactivate the DER, we will be able to see the BAU, which is overlapping in this scenario. The I buttons help us determine, get more information for what the graph represents. Further, we go into the power balance, which shows us the share of storage, solar, and grid to satisfy our load requirement or demand requirement. If you could see here, we had selected a dispatch strategy for the low marginal cost and high charging during low marginal cost and discharging during high marginal cost. So you could see that in the early mornings, the charging of the battery takes place and the discharging of the battery takes place during a peak at 1 o'clock in this instance, and further gets charged again and discharged later at 5 o'clock. So this 24-hour cycle holds 2 charge and 2 discharge cycles in this scenario. Further, we have the pie chart that represents the percentage contribution by grid, solar, and storage in the case to satisfy our demand or load. Moving into seeing the representation of the Voder analysis, that is the value of distributed energy resource analysis, we see the contribution of 4 components and the total network benefits, as well as the contribution of each pollutant, avoided emissions from each pollutant for the societal benefits and the total for the societal benefits. Here I would like to point out that the transmission cost and the generation capacity cost see a major avoided cost savings here, as the state load profile that has been introduced relates to a higher coincidence or a higher capacity credit factor, which further contributes to your large generation capacity cost avoided or transmission cost avoided. If the state load profile has a lower coincidence or a capacity credit factor with the system that has been selected, you would find that the transmission and the generation cost will be comparatively lower in that case. And you would find that the cost of energy contribution would be higher as compared to the transmission and generation capacity costs avoided. We move to the societal benefits, where we see the contribution from CO2, avoided SOx and NOx, as well as the particulate matter 2.5 in INR per kilowatt. Finally, we see the Voder benefits, which are some of the network benefits and the societal benefits for the installed or integrated DER system. This analysis could be downloaded or published and made public for other participants to have a look at. At this point, I will stop sharing my screen and return back to the presentation to further discuss on the methodology as well as the SOLVA tool. I hope the screen is visible.
Yeah, Frano, it's visible.
Yes, thank you, Madan. Further getting inputs and feedbacks and having further discussion on SOLVA tool, the SOLVA tool, usability of the SOLVA tool, as well as the methodology of establishing the value of DER system. I would like you to unmute yourself if there is any question, or you could even post the questions through chat and we could have a discussion in this session now. So if you have any query regarding the SOLVA tool or the methodology or the presentation, you could point it out and we can try and resolve your queries in this session.
So maybe to come in here, if you may, Radhika, can you please unmute all the participants? I guess we are looking at different levels of feedback. If you had an opportunity to use the SOLVA tool already, and if you have any observations concerning the methodology or the user interface, we would really appreciate feedback on that one. The second one is if anybody has some pointers for possible use cases other than we have presented earlier. So, you know, who could be the possible users? And very much connected with that is point 3. You know, any suggestions of how this tool could be disseminated more widely? Frano, I think we can take off the slide.
Okay.
So you can either raise your hand or maybe post something in the chat box.
All of you have access to the speaker, so all of you can actually talk.
I just had a very quick question. Alex here. In the example you showed, the benefits for distribution and transmission were quite low. Is that just the specific example you showed, or do you think this is a broader function in India where, you know, because the solar happens during the day, whereas the evening peak tends to be in the evening, there would be minimal transmission and distribution capacity deferral due to solar rooftop? Can you make a general statement, or is that just the specific example?
Thanks, Alex. Frano, you wanna give it a try?
So if I could explain it briefly, what I would say is in the SOLVA tool, we have taken a coincidence factor which factors in how much of the solar generation matches the peak of our load. And yes, as you mentioned, in case if the peaks are during solar hours, we are able to save more on the transmission capacity as well as the generation capacity cost avoided. However, if this peak is in the evening, which tends to be the actual scenario in our case, then we would have the lower capacity credit, which would give us a lower saving on avoided transmission capacity as well as avoided generation cost. And the results that you have seen is quite specific for the simulation that we have done, and it depends primarily on how the load profile is to get a benefit from. I hope that is sufficient, but maybe Martin could add something on this as well.
Yeah, Frano, if I may add, Alex, it's an interesting question. I mean, I haven't seen too many results yet specifically for India, but definitely I think we always a no-brainer that avoided energy costs are usually the higher ones. I think what we have seen in this particular case that Frano has presented, and also the state level load profile that we have had a lot of data gaps. So we had to manipulate it a little bit. So take it with a grain of salt. But what we have seen is that particularly in Tamil Nadu, we have a daytime peak, which is fairly prominent and which is typically accounting for more peak hours than the evening peak. And we are looking at the first 100 peak hours, and all of them occur during the daytime. So therefore, actually the opposite, we have a fairly high avoided transmission and generation capacity cost as compared to maybe another load profile where you have less of a daytime peak and more of a evening or nighttime peak.
And do you account for the fact that during the day, the lines are hotter, and so your transmission distribution losses are actually higher, or is that too granular to get into?
So we are, for the transmission losses, we have a very dumb system actually. So it's just a fixed value of percentage that we enter because we are not going into simulating the transmission network itself. However, for the distribution system, there we do the power flow analysis. And in this case, actually, really surprisingly, we haven't seen any benefits on the distribution losses, so very little.
Understood. Thanks.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, yeah, Ashwini this side from CW. I have a particular question specific to storage. When we are modeling storage in this SOLVA tool, and we are seeing that we can strategically see when do we want the storage to charge, or we want it to discharge, right? So is it also somewhere considering the state of charge of the battery, because that will also be a prominent factor in defining whether it can be charged or not?
Yeah, thanks, Ashwina. I think I'll pass this on to Reshma.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, we are considering the state of charge of the battery as well here. So what we are considering is like if the strategy selected is based on, suppose if it is on cost, lower cost and higher cost times. So what happens is during lower cost, the the battery will be charging, and we will see the state of charge of the battery as well. And once the battery is completely charged, it will stop charging. And similarly, when it discharges, we have a lower SOC as well. So when it reaches the lower level, we will stop discharging as well. So yes, we are considering both state of charge as well here. So yeah, and the charging and discharging strategy can be selected based on either cost or during peak or low peak hours.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
Reshma.
Bhavna, you speak.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Bhavna and I'm also from CEW. So I have two quick questions. First, I wanted to understand that we have considered here distribution capacity cost, the avoided one, but we have not considered avoided distribution losses. So what is the particular reason we are not monetizing that other than the distribution capacity cost? And second, related to the storage itself, we have mentioned that either we can pick, if I understood clearly, if we can pick whether the charging or discharging at peak hours, like something on similar sort, or the one that we have mentioned is on the cost side. But don't you think that both the parameters are actually linked with each other? Or are we seeing any difference if we select the two? Are we seeing variation in the results?
So Bhavna,
Thank you.
yeah, thanks for that. So I think for the first one, maybe we haven't emphasized it strongly enough. We do consider avoided distribution losses. So it's part of the avoided energy costs. So I think that was your question number one. For the second one, it's a good question. And to be honest, we didn't think it through, but you see, basically it could be that you will have instances where your cost of energy is higher, and where you do not necessarily have a peak demand. Or vice versa, you could have an instance where your cost of energy is low and you have a peak demand. And I give you an example in Tamil Nadu. You may know that especially during the summer months, where you also have the evening peaks very prominently because of air conditioning loads, the wind energy kicks in. And it could be quite likely that the cost of energy is actually not so high at that point in time. So that's why we felt we should provide these options.
Right.
But we
Thanks,
haven't
Madhu.
seen evidence that, that it is really required, but at least the options are there.
Sure. Also, just wanted to quickly understand that since I know that the Auroville works in Tamil Nadu extensively, so there are data points for that. But is there any plan for including other states, or it's just that the option will be there so that the people who are working in other states, they can feed in their data points?
Yeah, so best case scenario for us is that, you know, people like you feel there's any value in using this tool, and we all start populating the tool with load data. So we, of course, since we are in Tamil Nadu, we got our hands on 10 feeder level data for a single substation, which we have updated, and we have uploaded distribution transformer data that we have from our ROL mini grid. But eventually it would be nice to grow this, you know, as peer-to-peer, that everybody that has access to data adds it, and then it's open to any state.
The reason why I'm asking is that there are certain clauses that happens like because
Yeah.
when you work with any discoms, there are NDAs that we sign. So if we are using an external software, we have to ensure that whatever the data we are feeding is not being used.
Yeah.
So just for that, I just wanted to understand, like, if let's suppose I am putting a data set of a particular state,
Yeah.
can Auroville also have access to that data set, or how we are ensuring?
Yeah,
Because
that's a
we
good
do
question.
have NDAs and these challenges can occur.
Yeah, so you have a choice to say, I do not want to share the data, especially in your user setting. Yeah, I am aware that sometimes you sign an NDA, and then of course you cannot share. So yeah, if you have the need to protect your data, you have the options to do that.
All right, thank you.
Welcome. I think Ashwin also has his hand up. Shall we do him next?
Yeah, thanks, Alex. So my question is primarily on the reverse power flow part. So one of the implications the solar or solar plus storage has on the distribution system is primarily the reverse power flow, which affects transmission loading and other things, primarily DT overloading, all these kind of things. So in your power flow, have you actually came across scenarios where these kinds of incidences are happening when you increase the penetration of solar into the system, and how the model is basically dealing with the reverse power flow?
Thanks, Ashwin. Reshma, I need to pass that one to you.
Yeah, sure. Actually, here the reverse power flow. Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. You're audible.
Yeah. So to be frank, we have not come across reverse power flow scenarios here, but here in the tool at present, how we are providing the solar capacity and storage capacity is based on the peak. I mean the total. I mean the highest demand, or sorry, the capacity. For example, if you consider the case of DT, the solar capacity can be provided only up to, if it is 200 kilowatt or kVA, then solar capacity can be provided only 200 kVA. If the feeder is 10 megawatt, we can provide only 10 megawatt solar. So like that, we are currently we are providing the capacities for solar and storage. So that is why, that is one of the reason why we have not come across the reverse power flow. And here for this tool, we are using an open source Python software. So that is PyPSA. So it has its own limitations. So yeah, we are not going into the advanced power flow analysis. Here itself, it is a basic power flow. It is running, and what we are doing is for 8760 data points, we are running the power flow, and we are calculating all these other distribution laws, voltage, everything. Yeah, I hope.
Okay, so yeah, so basically what I get is it's kind of an inbuilt constraint on the amount of penetration we can actually put into the system, right? So the reverse power flow
Yes.
actually will not happen.
Yes, exactly. So
Okay.
yes.
And my follow-up question is, you mentioned that the power flow that has been done is relatively a basic model of power flow has been followed, right? So, so like what I understand from my academic background is there's a distribution power flow modeling altogether at different area, right?
Yes.
So there are some Newton-Raphson and other DC power flow kind of techniques, right?
Yes.
So is it one of those techniques that have been used for power flow, or is it more of some averaging out based on what is the load profile, what is the solar profile?
Yeah, I guess PyPSA is working on Newton-Raphson.
Newton-Raphson.
So yeah, actually, there is here we are calculating in this power flow analysis. How we are modeling the system is like we are aggregating the load. So we are aggregating the loads to a 3 bus or 4 bus system. Instead of having multiple buses, we are aggregating like that. So that the what backward forward power flow back, those kind of things are not needed here, since we limited our model to a 3 or 4 bus system.
Okay,
So he's
okay,
working on Newton Raphson. I guess yeah, 5 PSA is working on Newton Raphson.
okay. Yeah, thank you. That was all from my side.
Yeah, yeah.
Kumaresh, Ramesh had a question. You can unmute yourself and ask the question.
Yeah, thank you. First off, I'll just lower my hand. Yeah, hi, I'm Kumaresh from CEW. I think first off, I think good work. I think trying to sort of integrate the power flow part of it with the economics part of it. I think first of a few couple of questions actually. I think firstly, I think the uh, a very simple, I guess, question, but typically, sort of, how much time does it take for you to run a model, like for you to like sort of complete a simulation?
Yeah, I can answer this quickly. So to enter the data is of course your own speed, and but it will take you currently it will take about 10+ minutes for you to get an email notification. That's the computation time when there is not too much traffic on the website. We are of course looking into improving that a little bit, but it hasn't been the focus for now.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I think that's sort of a pretty good runtime. Also, I think I was just also looking at the methodology, the PDF that's there. I think could I was not really sort of able to follow. I think if you can just sort of maybe go over it again, as in how exactly do you decide when do you want to how to upgrade the distribution capacity? So you said something about five if it's exceeded more than 5 times, and it's written something on 96 value. So is it like 4 days or what?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can answer this, Reshma, but right now we have a very simple way. If we have 5 instances
Right.
in the year where we exceed the thermal capacity,
Okay.
then we upgrade.
Okay. So this instance basically is an R, right? That's the granularity of
Yeah.
simulation. Okay. Cool. And
Can I
yeah.
ask?
Reshma, is this correct?
Yeah. You are right, Martin.
Right.
I just want to add one more point into it. Actually, the power flow is taking too much time, and that is why we are getting the computation around 10 minutes now itself.
Okay.
So, for upgradation, we are considering 25 years of data with load additions. I mean, we are considering percentage increase in load as well. So what happens is, like, if we do the simulation for all the 8760 data points for 25 years, then
Right.
I think it will take a day for the simulation. So that's why how we in the methodology we are calculating the 96 peak points and then running the power flow for that 96 peak points, and considering if there is instances, if it is violating the thermal limit, we are suggesting an upgradation. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So the actual power flow is run only for those 96 peak points.
No, for the first year, it is running for 8760
Okay.
data points.
Okay.
And for the upgradation,
Right.
we are doing for 96 points.
Yeah, right, got that. Also, I think just one thing, and I think because I think Ashwini talked about it. So I'm not sure if it was a case of reverse power flow or was it because of the battery load. But I think in the example, the solution example that I think we discussed on the call, I think I saw that actually sort of the peak loading of uh, the system was, I think, higher for the case with DR as compared to the one without it. So maybe I think it's probably because we have a battery and that's charging it. So maybe.
Yeah.
higher.
Yeah, I think it's good that you pointed that out. Yeah, I think Frano took an example to challenge you all. It's because of the charging of the battery that in this case happens during peak hours. Strangely. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that there was mostly, yeah, I think just one more thing. So for the state load profile generation, I think there was an option of peak, specifying the peak value and the peak time. So how exactly do you do that? So I would have understood if it was just the peak load, so you would have just done a linear scaling with the same load curve. But if we specify, say, a different peak time, say I just, I'm just out of mischief, I say that the peak time is 12 midnight, right? Which obviously, like most probably it won't be. So how sort of exactly is that calculated? Like, do you have some like what's sort of the methodology or what's the assumptions?
I pass it on to Reshma if I understood the question. So because the question is we have two ways of providing input for the load profile on the state level. One is, of course, you upload your 8760 points.
Yeah.
The second one, in the case where you don't have that, you can enter a value. Reshma, can you come in here?
Mm, just a second. Yes, so when we, because it's very difficult to get a state load profile. So
Right.
that is the first reason why we provided that option.
Right.
In that, yes, once we get the I mean the peak load hour,
Yeah.
and what we are doing is like out of the 8760 data points,
Yeah.
we are calculating that peak, we are just picking that peak point. So based on that, we are calculating the capacity credit. So
Okay.
for the capacity credit only, this
Right.
input we needed, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So for the other cases, we will be considering 100 peak hours.
Okay.
Okay. So if we have a state load.
Right. Okay.
In this case, how it happens is like, suppose if you provided 12 midnight, then
Yeah.
we will be providing which day of the year, which month. So all these. So we will get which is the point out of 8760. Maybe if it is 1000,
Yeah.
it will take the solar generation at that particular
Right.
data point.
Okay.
So in order to calculate the capacity credit, we are using that.
Right. Got that. Yeah, I think that sort of clears it up. Once again, I think really good work on sort of integrating and with the user interface, making it easy to put in the inputs.
Anyone else? I mean, if somebody has some suggestions on, I think it was question 2 and 3, do you see different use cases as compared to those ones that Frano has described? And do you have any suggestions for dissemination? Frano is smiling. So if nothing else, you can anyway also reach us per, you think you have our email ID. I also want to acknowledge a few people that started working on this project, but then moved on later on, like Shiv, who is also on the call, and Reshma, of course, thanks. She's not working with us anymore, but she has been gracious enough to come on the call. And we have been bugging her a lot in the last few weeks. So yeah, thanks for being available as well. So I guess we can close the call. Of course, we would be delighted if you have any other feedback, send us an email that we hear back from you. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Those of you, if you need, I'll share the presentation as well after this call. So please take a look. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for participating.
Thank you.